I've got a bee in my bonnet about the way healing is often framed, especially in the self-help space, and how often it's reduced to a checklist: journal, meditate, drink water, do the work. But what about the work of wailing, of belly laughing, of throwing your arms up and dancing barefoot in the middle of your grief? What about the kind of healing that invites you to feel it all? We live in a world where our wellness is measured by how well we return to productivity, how quickly we can get back to work, how much of our inner world can resolve itself to become efficient, palatable, and useful to others. But what if that's not what healing is for? Why would we expect our healing to mimic the value system of the very world that exhausted us in the first place? If you're feeling tired, not just physically, but soul deep, I want to gently offer this reminder. It is incredibly difficult to heal in the same environment that made you sick. Not impossible, but hard. Healing often asks for space, for pause, for quiet that is less about silence and more about sanctuary. Sometimes we have to step away, not to abandon, but to remember and relocate ourselves, to hear our own voice again, to trust it. Because healing at its core is not about fixing everything or everyone that's been touched by your pain. It's not about mending the family dynamic, restoring the friendship, smoothing every snag and ripple. Healing isn't about becoming who you were before. It's about homecoming, weary and changed, and creating who you are now in the wake of what's been lost and learned. That process takes imagination, dreaming, a sense of possibility. But how can we dream into the future when all we've been taught is to be okay enough to endure and keep going? The truth is, many of us have been carrying the quiet belief that healing is only valuable if we become useful. If it makes us better workers, better daughters, better husbands, wives, friends. If it makes us easier to love, easier to be around, easier to understand. And if we trace that belief to its roots, we find something sharper and darker buried underneath. This world has a strange and persistent entitlement to the suffering of people, especially women and marginalized people. There's a social script that says we owe our pain to others as evidence of our resilience, a cautionary tale, as a way to make others comfortable. And at a grand scale, our suffering, our ability, and our willingness to sacrifice fuel the machine that runs the world. We're often expected to narrate and justify our wounds before we're even allowed to name them, to explain ourselves before we've had time to feel what's true. We're taught to package our healing into something legible and lovely, not for ourselves, but for the consumption of others. Forgive and forget, right? But healing isn't performance. It doesn't need to be beautiful to be real. You don't need to sanitize your grief in order for it to matter. You don't need to shrink your anger into something graceful. You don't need to be useful in your suffering. You just need space and softness and moments of aliveness that remind you in your body what it means to be a living, breathing, dreaming thing. You deserve permission to pause, permission to come apart, permission to disappoint. Because there's another tender truth that's scary to name. Competency, the ability to solve problems, move through life with ease, show up and follow through, is a huge component of how others see us positively. But when you're dealing with things that aren't easily resolved, a chronic illness, mental health challenges, persistent grief, it can feel like your very being starts to buckle and strain under the weight of others' disappointment, like you're a burden for your lack of betterness. When healing takes time, or when it doesn't yield the kind of results people are used to seeing, you might start to believe the problem is you, that you're not really trying hard enough, that you're somehow failing at getting better. And sometimes the people who love you most, who are trying their best, still struggle to meet you with patience or compassion. The shame, both internal and social, can make healing feel even farther away. But you're not broken for being in process. You're not a problem to be solved. You're a person worthy of love, belonging, tenderness, even in the slow, uncertain becoming. You have the right to cry. You have the right to scream. You have the right to lay on the floor and feel sorry for yourself. You have the right to feel joy so big the surprise of it swallows you up. You have the right to dance and sing, even if you don't know how. You have the right to build a future that isn't shaped around your wounds, but around your wants. Healing is not about becoming more efficient. It's about becoming more you. So if you haven't screamed or danced or cried or sang in a while, maybe this is your invitation. Not because you have to, but because you can. Because you can hold pain and joy in the same vessel. And that's something sacred.